Mahalo, Jenny. Aloha mai kākou, and welcome to the Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea community planning meeting. I'm just going to share screen real quick. Can you folks all see that? All right. So again, aloha ho kākou. My name is Nick Kavela-Kai-Farant. I was born and raised in Paumalu, which is the area just north of Pūpūkea. And I have the privilege of serving as facilitator for this meeting tonight. I currently serve in the capacity with the University of Hawaii Sea Grant College program, as well as the North Shore Community Land Trust. It's a joint hire, and it allows me to do a lot of exciting work out here on the North Shore, but also collaborate with other organizations like this opportunity here tonight. Before we get started, I wanted to share an oli, or a Hawaiian chant, with you all to just initiate this meeting. This oli was composed by one of my teachers, my kumu at UH Manoa, Kumu Mehana Vaughn. She's from Halelea, Kauai, and she has played an important role in marine conservation on Kauai, as well as the management and creation of the Ha'ena community-based subsistence fishing area. So I think appropriate to bring her here tonight and to share this oli with you all. So if you all could just bring your intentions of aloha for this place that we all wish to protect and care for, that's really what this oli is about. He aloha no ka aina ulu vehi ke aloha o nā kupunae. He punawai I ke kaui ka hano vale o Pūpūkea. E ho mai ka maopopo pono mai uka I ka ie. Aloha e, aloha e, aloha e. Aloha mai kākou. So again, aloha and komo mai, welcome to the Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District Management Plan Community Meeting. The kumu, or purpose of this meeting, relates to the fact that the State Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Aquatic Resources, DAR for short, is creating the first ever management plan for the Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District. Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea, which you should all know is the nonprofit that cares for the Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District, is helping DAR gather ideas from the North Shore community. So the purpose of this meeting is to gather the community's ideas about effective Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District management. And it is important to note that this management plan will not and cannot change the MLCD rules, but will focus on how the area can be effectively managed by DAR and its partners, including the community. And one other thing that I wanted to share that I found interesting as I got involved with this process is that this is actually the second, as far as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but the second management plan for a marine management area to be created across the state. So not only is this a great opportunity for Pūpūkea and the Pūpūkea-Waimea Marine Life Conservation District, but it's helping to set a precedent for better management of our marine shorelines across the state. So I just thought that was interesting to note as well. So our papahana, or agenda for our time here together, we'll start off with an introduction to the Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea nonprofit, as well as the Pūpūkea-Waimea Marine Life Conservation District, and that will be shared with you all by Jenny. Jenny will then pass it over to Luna Kekoa of DAR to provide an introduction to the Holomua Marine 30x30 Management Initiative and planning efforts. Luna will pass it over to Debbie, who will share the results of recent community surveys, which were conducted to provide important background information, which will guide this management planning process. And then I will share a short overview of DAR's 4 pillars of the Holomua initiative. And at that point, we'll take a quick break for you all to write down your own ideas, and then we'll gather back together to share out those ideas in relation to each of those 4 pillars of the Holomua 30x30 management plan. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll talk about the next steps for this whole process. So as we spend our time here together today, it's important to have some loina or rules, shared expectations to ensure that we're all on the same page here together. And first and foremost, that we want to receive and give our mana'o, our thoughts, with kindness. Uncle Eric Enos, who is a community leader, the founder of Ka'ala Farms, often says, try assume honor. Assume that the others here are sharing their mana'o with honor. And as you share your mana'o, please do so with your best intentions. And do so by focusing on solutions rather than the problems. Our second loina is to step up and step back. So we all have very important mana'o to share. So if you do have something to share, please do step up. Please do not be afraid to step up. We value all mana'o. However, if you've been sharing a lot throughout the meeting, please be mindful of others' opportunity to share mana'o so we all have an equal chance to contribute. And everything that we contribute, let's ensure that it contributes to the meeting's purpose, which is to inform DAR's management planning efforts for the Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District. There may be many more thoughts and ideas that you have than you have time to share. So please do use that pen and paper that you have with you to create a personal parking lot or a list of questions, ideas, and comments that you'd like to share when there's time to do so. As I mentioned, we will have a break about midway through the meeting, but if at any time you need to excuse yourself to use a restroom or get a glass of water, please do take care of yourself. Just be sure to use the appropriate settings on Zoom, which we'll talk about on the next slide. And last but not least, we only have a limited time together, so please do consider that time is a resource. Please try to be as concise as possible with your comments and also respect everybody's opportunity to share as well. To ho'oma'a or get more familiar with Zoom, again, as Jenny mentioned, this meeting is recorded. So as we do encourage you, if you're comfortable to do so, to keep your camera on. It leads to a more inclusive environment. However, if you're not comfortable being shown on camera, you are welcome to keep your camera off if that is what you're most comfortable with. As far as audio, please do keep yourself on mute if it is not your turn to speak. That'll just lead to a more pleasant audio experience for everybody. And if you are called upon, don't forget to take yourself off mute so that we can hear your comments. In order to make a contribution, please physically raise your hand, or you can use the electronic raise hand function, which is found on the Zoom toolbar, which is somewhere on your screen, either the top or the bottom. On my screen, it's movable, but it's under the annotate button, which has a little pencil on it. So you can click on that. You can click on raise hand, and then a little hand will be in your top corner of your screen. And then one of us will be able to call on you to share your comment. And lastly, another way that you can contribute to the meeting and potentially even get a response more quickly is to use the chat function. At any time, feel free to put a question or a comment into the chat. And then one of us will be able to address that either via chat or we can bring it up verbally within the meeting. So at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Jenny of Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea to provide an overview of their work.
Aloha and mahalo, Nick. I appreciate that. My name is Jenny. I'm the Director of Educational Programs for Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea, and we're the community nonprofit that cares for, educates about, and protects the Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District. We actually formed back in 2005 was the original inception of MTW. And our mission is working to replenish and sustain the natural and cultural resources of the Pūpūkea and Waimea Ahupua'a for present and future generations through active community stewardship, education, and partnerships. And we accomplish that in a variety of ways. And so we've bulleted out just a few of those for you here today. We do a lot of outreach and education, whether that's on site, in and around the MLCD or at different community events or in schools. just everything that we can do to sort of spread awareness and educate the broader community and beach users or resource users. We also are a Makai Watch program, and Makai Watch is a really awesome collaboration with DoCare, the folks who are tasked with enforcing the rules and regulations set out to protect our marine resources. We also have a Native Hawaiian plant coastal restoration area, and that is in an effort to help reduce erosion, which is harmful to the reef below. We run a few of our own marine science for youth programs. We have a Kapapakai program, which is marine science for youth, and also a Lawai Apono program, which is a fishing and gathering class or program that uses traditional Hawaiian values to educate especially young fishers and gatherers about pono practices in our nearshore marine environment. We also do a whole bunch of biological and human use monitoring, and we do beach cleanups and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's just a little bit about Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea, our organization, and what we do. And I would like to take a moment to just acknowledge here in our meeting today, we do have Denise Antolini, who is our board of directors president. And we also have Sydney, and she's off camera today because she's just here to listen tonight, but she's also on our board of directors. And then I also see Christy in here, and Christy actually helps work with our Native Hawaiian plant coastal restoration project as a contractor. And then I also see Ellie has just popped in, and Ellie has been doing our most recent summer marine science coordinating and in-water biological monitoring. So I just want to mahalo the team. In addition to that, we also have Debbie Goen-Smith, who has been with our organization in multiple capacities forever, but you'll hear from Debbie in a little while. So let's talk a little bit about the Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District itself. And so the Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District is this area you all know, you're here, up on the North Shore, that encompasses everything you see there inside that yellow line. It was originally designated in 1983, and it included Kalua'amaua, or Three Tables, and Pūpūkea and Kopo'o, or Shark's Cove. And you can see those pulled out there on the right. And then it was further expanded in 2003 to include Waimea Bay. And so those are the current boundaries of the Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District. And the Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District, like all other marine life conservation districts, are areas that are set aside to provide fish and other aquatic species with protected area in which to grow and reproduce. And out here in our Marine Life Conservation District, it's actually a really important habitat for a variety of marine species. There's over 75 different species of fish and eel. There's over 60 species of coral and invertebrates. We've identified, and I'm sure there's more, by the way, of all of these species, but we've identified over 40 species of limu, or seaweed. It's also home to Hawaiian monk seals, green and hawksbill sea turtles, sharks, Hawaiian spinner dolphins, rays, Native Hawaiian coastal plants, birds, and much, much more. And so what I would like to do now is I would like to actually pass it over to Luna Kekoa, who is gonna talk to you folks about his role with the Division of Aquatic Resources and the Holomua Marine 30x30 initiative. Go ahead, Luna.
Mahalo, Jenny, and mahalo for this opportunity to share about Holomua. So again, my name is Luna Kekoa. I'm a program manager with the Division of Aquatic Resources. And I was previously the community-based subsistence fishing area planner. And through that position, ended up helping to co-lead the Holomua initiative. So Holomua, to kind of understand it, go back maybe like 6 years. 2016, Governor Ige kind of started the state Sustainable Hawaii initiative, which included things like renewable energy, food security. They looked Mauka, so having 30% of watersheds protected, and then 30% marine areas protected and managed. And so DAR, being the Marine Resources, Aquatic Resources Division, took this initiative and was like, this is something that we would have to lead, like we would have to be the lead agency, but us leading is going to be, asking the communities and reaching out to them, be like, hey, in your area, what are the issues and concerns, right? So to us, effectively management, like what are the issues and concerns of the areas, and are we meeting those issues and concerns, right? Because if we say like, oh, everywhere should have a baseline of like 90% fish biomass, right? But not every area is created equally, right? Different areas have the different concerns. So to us and our team, effectively management, are they meeting those goals and objectives of what the area was created for? And so that in a nutshell is kind of Holomua. We look at 4 different areas of Holomua, right? To effectively manage our near shores. So place-based planning, right? And this is that number of how we're creating that 30%, right? We want to each island look at an island network of marine management areas that are connected. And 30% of those areas being established as marine management areas. And just to clarify, when we say marine management areas, it doesn't mean no take. Pūpūkea is one example of a marine life conservation district, but you have areas like was shared previously about Haena, the community-based systems fishing area. We have Midoli'i as another bay. We have fisheries management areas like Kaikili in Maui. So different types of marine management areas, right? So that's the first one. It's like creating a 30% island network of marine management areas. Our second goal is like Pono practices, right? So that's statewide regulations. How are we taking care of the other 70% that aren't established as marine management areas, right? How are we educating and outreach about the rules and why it's important? How are we increasing enforcement, right? We always talk about building compliance, and that comes from making sure that we have good enforcement. The third goal is monitoring, right? When we're creating these areas, are they being effective? We got to be managing and monitoring these areas to know what is happening and if we can adjust the rule based upon the data that we're collecting. And then finally is protection and restoration, right? So in certain areas, it would make sense for us to start to restore these areas because there's such a potential for them to recover. So those are kind of the 4 ways that Holomua is looking at effectively managing the nearshore area, right? The tools in our toolbox. The next thing on there is why management plans, right? Like why are management plans being completed now? I wanted to just put out a little tidbit. So I know it was shared that this is the second management plan, but it was the second management plan being worked on, but Midoli'i actually got passed. And so their area is now official marine management area, and they have a management plan. So that's number 2. You guys are kind of in competition with Pūpūkea-Waimea, who is also a community-based systems fishing area that has their management plan that is working through the Chapter 91 process to become an official area. So depending, you guys might be number 3 or 4, but still yet, you guys are one of the first ones. And this is one of the first, you guys can take the credit for being the first community to use our management plan guide, right? We came up with this, here's a template. We want to try and make it work. You folks were the first one to pilot and be like, here's what works, here's what doesn't work, right? The last thing is, what is the role of the Division of Aquatic Resources? So our mission, and I just wanted to make sure I got it right, so I made sure I wrote it down. We had it. Our mission is to work with the people of Hawaii to manage, conserve, and restore the state's unique aquatic resources and ecosystems for present and future generations, right? So it's not just for now, but we're thinking like a couple generations, not just for my kids, but my kids' kids, my kids' grandkids, right? That's where we want to go. And so that's the role of the division. And that's kind of a quick Cliff Notes version of the Holomua. Mahalo, Jenny. And I'm passing it off to Debbie.
Mahalo, Luna. And yeah, just thank you so much to Luna for being here. Thank you to the Division of Aquatic Resources, because we wouldn't be in the position that we are without their support. I actually was just looking on my calendar, and the first meeting that I can find in my calendar, and I don't know how far my calendar has saved back, but it was a year ago when we started, started really talking and scheduling specific management planning meetings. But we've been collaborating with the Division of Aquatic Resources from the very beginning. They were at the very first meeting that resulted in the creation of Mālama Pūpūkea-Waimea. So they've been close collaborators with us for many years, and it's been a wonderful, I think, beneficial partnership for both of us. So yeah, our kunoni so far, in working on this management planning process that have included regular meetings between Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea and Division of Aquatic Resources, going back more than a year. And we've also consulted with other agencies, because even though Holomua and the management planning process, the management plan will be a Division of Aquatic Resources management plan. You know, the waters are affected by the Federal National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the city and county, especially the Parks and Recreation Department, who stewards or has responsibility for the land areas, the beach parks that are adjacent to the Marine Life Conservation District, DOBOR, which is the Boating Authority, DOCARE, which is Conservation and Resources Enforcement, and others. So we've been doing a lot of consultation with all of these different groups, and all of these different groups are folks that are also collaborators of Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea and have been for almost 20 years now. In addition, we have gathered with Ellie's help, scientific studies that date back to the 1970s, and have done a literature review, or she completed a literature review of those studies. And we've also collaborated with some wonderful scientific partners to do original studies in the Marine Life Conservation District and the tide pools. And so there's been, we've got a lot of scientific information that has helped to inform the management planning process. And then of course, there's also scientific information from the state and other partners. We also conducted 17 interviews with North Shore Kupuna and Ohana just over the past year, around 9 to 6 months ago. And so I'm going to share a little bit from those surveys with you this evening or this afternoon as well. And then we had 2 different surveys that went out to North Shore community members. So I want to share those with you as well. So that's what we've done so far. So let me share back some of the results from the surveys and the interviews that we did. If you filled out a survey, if you talked to one of the folks who did interviews, mahalo nui. It was really important that we gather initial responses that way and understand the relationship the community has with the Marine Life Conservation District. So just to give you a sense of who we talked to or who filled out the surveys, most of the respondents on the surveys, which went out through the Sunset Beach Community Association and also through our social media. And so yes, thank you to the Sunset Beach Community Association, which is another good partner for Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea. Most of the folks who completed surveys were from Sunset Beach and Pūpūkea areas. And then also from other North Shore communities, then Honolulu, and other areas further than that. Most respondents said that they had some knowledge of the Marine Life Conservation District. Some felt that they were not very knowledgeable, and about a quarter of you felt like you were very knowledgeable. So most folks at least thought that they had some knowledge of the Marine Life Conservation District. And then we also asked different ways that folks like to utilize the Marine Life Conservation District. And we asked about land-based activities like enjoying the beaches and the shoreline. We asked about water-based activities, boarding, fishing, because fishing is allowed in Waimea Bay only, boating, and then other activities. The most common activities for people who completed the survey were those land-based activities. They do those activities daily, once a week, or about once a month. And then the order in which the frequency of those activities, like the most frequent one starts at the bottom of that graph. So mostly land-based activities, then of course, snorkeling, swimming, and diving, then boarding, board-based activities, and so on. So that's the population that filled out the surveys. And then what we found from the open-ended questions in the surveys and the interviews that we conducted, and we did about 17 interviews, folks have a long-term very deep relationship to the Marine Life Conservation District. So we were talking to people with solid histories and a relationship to place. And people expressed a very deep appreciation for the beauty of the Marine Life Conservation District and the activities that they do there, especially recreational activities. Folks did say that they have observed increased fish abundance and biodiversity, especially the kupuna and the ohana that were speaking with us, who saw the place before it was designated as an MLCD in 1983. So they say that they have seen increased abundance since the 1980s. They also had talked about the limu, becoming more aware of the abundance of limu in the area and of native plants, at least in part due to the native planting project that Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea has been active in over the past 8 years or so. Also, they expressed concern about the Marine Life Conservation District, specifically around overuse, erosion, boating in the Marine Life Conservation District, and the number of boats and how long the boats stay in the MLCD. Rubbish, and then poaching, so the illegal fishing that happens. People's language around the overuse, we describe as grief. I mean, it was people who were grieving over the fact that local families have a difficult time accessing the area because of over-tourism, parking, and traffic challenges. So there was this sense of like, we love the place, we remember what it used to be like, and we miss it. We grieve it. And when we asked folks the kinds of management actions they might support, the ideas that were brought forward were limiting access, so some sort of control over use of the area, maintaining and enforcing the current rules, adapting the rules to make enforcement easier, putting boundary markers so that when you're actually entering the MLCD from the Mackay side, you would know where when you were entering the MLCD, and then supporting continued education and outreach. And overall, there was just a large desire for the MLCD to be a place that local families can return to. And then in the next slide, if you wouldn't mind, there were 23 different scientific studies that Ellie looked at and compiled together in this literature review. And, we're going to have Ellie come to a science talk story at some point so that she can go into a lot more detail. We don't have time to delve into all the amazing and fascinating things that she found. So I'm giving you like the very broad stroke overview of a lot of really detailed information. And in Ellie's literature review, she's got some ideas around what those scientific studies can help us understand about management of the area. So the three main points from those 23 scientific studies, one of which was in 1975 and the rest are spread out throughout the 2000s, is that current non-extractive regulations at the Pūpūkea MLCD do help to reduce the impact on fish and invertebrate biomass, but further management is needed to buffer the effects of increasing visitation especially. And then another key finding is that the tide pools especially see heavy impact from various sources, but runoff, human presence, and substrate impacts from feet. They get trampled. The tide pools get trampled. And, Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea has been doing human use studies since 2005. And, Samantha has helped with those. Ellie has helped with those. We had a lot of people, a lot of community volunteers working on those. So thank you to everybody that's participated. And human use has increased drastically over those almost, 17 years or so that we've been doing those human use surveys. So lots more human use. All right, so I think at this point, I hand it over to Nick.
Mahalo, Debbie. So at this time, we're going to go over the 4 pillars of the Holomua Marine 30 by 30 initiative. And Luna alluded to them in his presentation. But just for you all to see, again, the 4 pillars, we'll go over each of these over the next few slides. But they are place-based planning, pono practices, monitoring, and protection and restoration. So I'll be sharing the official kind of language surrounding these 4 pillars so that we can all have a shared kind of understanding that's directly drawn from the Holomua plan itself. So first of all, place-based planning integrates the recognized differences in species diversity, abundance, and harvesting practices into management planning. Actions within this pillar will focus on activities and community engagement to implement marine managed areas that reflect specific needs and concerns of each place. For example, supporting the completion of a biological carrying capacity study to inform the limitations of human use on biological condition and capacity. The second pillar is pono practices, which encourages responsible behavior guided by Hawaiian values and perspectives through education and outreach, statewide rules, strengthened enforcement, and local partnerships to encourage sustainable behaviors and practices in nearshore waters. Actions within this pillar will encourage ocean resource users to behave responsibly. DAR and DoCare will work together with community members to increase stewardship and compliance. For example, to support and expand Makai Watch, which incorporates outreach and education, intervention, reporting, and collaboration with DoCare, including following up on enforcement actions. The third pillar is monitoring, which is an essential component which measures and documents current Mauka to Makai conditions and uses data to identify areas where management actions need to be further adapted. It provides a way to measure the changes occurring and if implemented actions are effective. Monitoring should include people, cultural resources, biological resources, and include the interaction between ecosystems and people throughout the Ahupua'a. Actions within this pillar will track responsive fish and coral reef habitat, evaluate management effectiveness, identify data gaps, and determine areas where the plan may need to be adapted. For example, to continue regular community monitoring of human use. And the last of the 4 pillars is protection and restoration, which builds upon existing strategies to promote resilience and prevent damage to fragile nearshore ecosystems from human use, terrestrial threats, and biological stressors, including climate change. This pillar expands efforts to protect, restore, and enhance cultural and biological resources by strengthening and supporting community and agency partnerships, programs, and projects. Actions within this pillar will expand efforts to restore and improve nearshore areas and work with other agencies to reduce land-based threats to nearshore ecosystems. For example, to prevent and remove marine debris from within the waters of the MLCD. So again, you can see the 4 pillars of the Holomua Marine 30 by 30 initiative summarized. At this time, we're going to transition into an opportunity for you all to take your pens and papers or notepads to begin to brainstorm some ideas that you may have as to actions and strategies that DAR and our community can implement with regard to these 4 pillars at the Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District. So please do take some time to write down any thoughts that you may have, questions, strategies, actions that you think could benefit this process. And please think about which of the 4 pillars your ideas may fall under, because we're going to be talking about each of these 4 pillars individually over the next several minutes or half an hour or so together. So after you have a chance to write down some of your ideas, feel free to go take a break, use the restroom, refill your water, and we'll gather back together in about 10 minutes. So it's just before 5:40. So at around 5:50, we'll gather back together. So please take a few minutes and don't mind me. I was asked to play some background music So I'll be playing ukulele, and if it's really terrible, then you can just turn your volume down and come back at 5:50. Mahalo, everyone. Anything, Debbie or Jenny, that you wanted to add at this time? Okay, awesome.
Do we get to make requests?
Well, do you have one? I only play Hawaiian songs. I was gonna play some relevant, some ocean songs. So
Sounds good.
Luna, you should teach Nick your Holomua song.
no ke ike aku ke kai moana nui la nui ke aloha e I poi nei me ke hala o kalipoa e ho'ohe no ke ike aku ke kai moana nui la nui ke aloha e I poi nei me ke ala o kalipoa he lipoa I pai ke one hinu la vela I kalaha ke hehia e mai mana o he pono ke ia kohu e kalimu kohu ke kauilu na hona moku la o ia moku lala e ho oni ana I oho ia nei haina mai kapuahana kalipoa me kahalimu kohu hoa pili o he me ka pahe anoni me kalipalu aina pau haina mai kapuahana kalipoa me kahalimu kohu hoa pili o he me ka pahe anoni me kalipalu
Excellent.
How's the volume? Is that like soft or loud?
It's good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great, Nick. Thank you.
Not too distracted. I hope you're still writing down your ideas. Oh, I'm gonna play the. Aloha ka manini me ka popo hei ano hoia I ka lahu papa Aloha ka manini me ka popo hei ano hoia I ka lahu papa Kala kane nue o kana hame Moani ke ala ke honi aku Ahole I a pikoli haliha O ka pohi uala ka ohi pupu Haina ia mahi ana ka puana Aloha ka manini me ka popolo. Haina po. Haina haia mai hiana ka puana. Aloha ka manini me ka popolo. Aloha ka manini me ka popolo. All right. The idea is flowing.
Yeah, Nick, you're making me think of limu and fish so far. So thank you for that.
Limu fish. Now we got to eat the fish. But as long as it's not caught from the Pūpūkea Marine Life Conservation District, except for Waimea Bay, certain
Right.
certain
2 poles per person, 2 hooks per pole for any legal finfish.
Yeah. Let's see.
Jenny, I think that's the way you should teach the rules from now on. It's like just as like little snippets between lovely music.
I like it.
Searching for next song.
Nick, you can write a song that has the MLCD rules as the lyrics.
Yeah, that'd be something. I'd still curious to hear Luna's song of the 30 by 30 song or Holomua.
I see Mao is in this meeting, and Mao is a beautiful hula dancer. So I feel like Nick wants to create that melee. We're gonna have to have Mao create a hula to go along with it.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna try to play. We probably have time for one more.
Tanaho for sure.
I second that.
Okay. Ke ua ka ono ma ke alo pikola, kahi mo mona piko kane nuela, liha liha wale ke momoni akula, o ka o io halale ke kaila, o ka o pelu e pepenu anala, e ono tomi toho i tau i tō pu te momoni aku. He ono a he ono a he ono I o a he ono no, a he ono no. Mai piki koe oi ke a kulela, a hei a hapi ka hohonula, hoi ho oe I kahi anaila, me ka manini pulehu iala, o ke kole ka I a mako naunala, he ono tomi toho I tau I tō pupu te momoni aku. He ono a he ono a he ono I o a he ono no, a he ono no. Mai piki koe oi I ke a kulela, a hei a hapi ka hohonula, hoi ho oe I kahi anaila, me ka manini pulehu iala, o ke kole ka I a mako naunala, he ono tomi toho I tau I tō pupu te momoni aku. He ono a he ono a he ono I o a he ono no, a he ono no.
That was so awesome, Nick. Thank you so much.
No worries. Got 2 more minutes. How's the, or 1 more minute? Probably not enough time for another song. So mahalo for the opportunity.
Mahalo, Nick.
I've had a lot of ideas come through.
What's going
This is the
school?
There's Jenny, there's Christy.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
How's Andy just got off from work at Queens. So
awesome. Nice to see you.
People work on the drip system and jump in the pool.
Okay. And he's ditched me for the drip irrigation system.
That reminds me, Nicole, since we have about 30 seconds left, if you folks have seen our Native Hawaiian plant coastal restoration down at Kapo'o, the Nestles are so gracious to let us come raid their bamboo forest to make our fencing one time. So mahalo nui for that. Appreciate that so much. It's almost time for new bamboo, so we'll have to hit you guys up.
Yeah. And not this year, but next year, we're growing a bunch of black bamboo. So if you want to get very chic with the black bamboo fencing.
Awesome. Thanks again. Okay, Nick, back to you.
Okay, great. Well, I hope everybody had an opportunity to write down some ideas related to each of these 4 pillars. So now at this time, we are going to go one by one in order presented here to have an opportunity for each of you to share your thoughts. So again, thinking back to our loina, please do step up, but also step back, share everything that you have to share with us here. So we're gonna, and as a reminder, you probably saw this throughout the time you were writing, but we're not changing MLCD rules. We are simply providing suggestions as to how these rules can be implemented and how the area can be effectively managed. So we'll start off by discussing place-based planning. So at any time, feel free to use the raise hand function or physically raise your hand. Jenny will be helping me to find those who are raising their hand. And I'm actually gonna go out of this screen so you all can see in this screen, you can see Debbie, who will be taking notes of the comments that you're sharing. Is that working? Okay. So anything regarding place-based planning?
Awesome. So thank you, Nick. So folks, feel free to either just wave at us or raise your hand. We're happy to take notes as you talk, or you can also put it in the chat there too. So Jamie, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, aloha everyone, and thanks for organizing this. Just a quick clarification point, Nick. My understanding of Holomua, and if Luna's still on, he can clarify, is that there are opportunities for the community to suggest changes to MLCD rules. So I guess a lot of the suggestions I have are potentially would modify some of the existing MLCD rules. And so I guess I just wanted to sort of clarify that, because it is my impression that there is an opportunity. That might not be the scope for this meeting, and that's fine. Like, I'm happy to sort of step back from that, but it'd be good to clarify that before we continue.
Yeah. Jenny, or did you want to address that?
Yeah, sure. I think for this one, Luna, if you're able to take this one, or even Denise could take this one.
Denise, you want me to jump in real fast?
You go, I'll supplement if
Perfect.
There's anything left, yeah. Okay.
So Jamie, you're totally right. When we go to areas, maybe I'll step away from Pūpūkea so that we don't look at theirs, but like Ho'okena, their fishery replenishment area, they're looking to how do we modify our fisheries replenishment area, which is focused on aquarium, to more focus on our practice of opelu. And so they want to take the FRA and use the similar boundaries, but kind of gut it so that it's not just focused on aquarium, but it's focused on opelu and the community-based subsistence fishing. And so in that light, yes, if the community that's the area they're going and that's the direction they want to go, we will support that. I don't see DAR right now coming in and being like, you know what, Pūpūkea, we think you got to do this and this. It's like, we might have data that as we listen to what Pūpūkea is proposing and what they're thinking, we can be like, hey, you know, we noticed you didn't mention nothing on, and this is just putting something out there, like coral, like percent coral cover. You know, we got data that showed like there was, just saying it again, a decline. Would you guys be open to X, Y, Z, right? That might be the discussion, but if the community puts it out there, we would follow. And if not, it'd be like, hey, it's just a question. Is this something you're interested in? So I think that's the way we would go about it. And for Pūpūkea, it's kind of like we listened to them and they were like, this is where we want to go. And we're like, you know, we'll support that. We'll listen to what the community has to say. And down in the path, if it comes out to where like maybe a rule needs to be changed, that can be on the table.
Yeah, and hi, Jamie. It's great to see you, and thanks. I would just add that for I think there's plenty of room in the management plan for suggestions for improvement in terms of changing rules. There's opportunity for that, but the document itself and the process itself won't change the rules. So that's the distinction we're trying to make is this management plan itself will be alongside the existing rules to make everything more effective, but there's definitely room for improvement, but there would have to be a separate rulemaking process. We did go through one to include the tide pools and MLCD. So it's been done. So I would say make all the suggestions you want, don't hold back because we need those ideas. And there will be a place for recommendations for future action. So I hope that answers your question. It's a yes and answer.
You want to share your thoughts then, Jamie? I think no one, I don't see any other hands raised.
Yeah, and you made a good point. I want to be mindful about not taking the mic too much on this one. And just, I guess, for everyone on the call, like my background is I'm an oceanographer and I work for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and specifically NOAA fisheries. So I do a lot of research on coral reefs and marine food webs and how things like land-based pollution and fishing and climate change all influence them. I've lived here for about 20 years and I do a lot of swimming and hanging out in the bay in Sharks Cove. And so for the place-based planning, I just had a couple of thoughts or ideas. And some of these might be questions and worth jotting down is, I've always kind of wondered about the sort of limited commercial fishing that happens in the bay. So twice a year, I think something like July maybe for the Akule and November for Pelu or vice versa. I don't know the specifics, but I've been there when that happens, and I realize that, you know, there are certainly the way that they are conducting themselves is limited in terms of, you know, they're using boats and oars and so on and so forth. But I just wonder where that legacy comes from and whether that is something we want to continue and support and perpetuate. Because it, you know, as all net fishing does, it scoops a lot of fish in a very short amount of time. And there's a noticeable difference in the total biomass of schooling fish in coastal pelagics before and after they're there. I don't know if we've done any surveys, so this could potentially fall within the monitoring and something to watch. So it falls in multiple bins here. But, you know, coastal pelagics like Kule and Pelu and some of the other sort of small fish that are schooling in there are really important for marine food webs, and they're important food resources for higher trophic levels, tuna, cetaceans, so on and so forth. So I think that I would like to see us either monitor that through time or potentially revisit whether that's actually a really important practice that we should support in this community plan. So I'll stop on that one idea and let other people speak.
Mahalo, Jamie. Any other thoughts related to place-based planning? Okay, I see Nicole. I think you may be on mute. Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't know if this is the right place for it, but it says place, and this is about a very specific place. So right off of the Three Tables reef, where it starts to kind of move into, I guess, like right behind the firehouse, there have been quite a few catamarans, fishing boats anchoring on the reef there, usually at about 11 a.m. And Jenny knows me, I'm a details person. So that's why I'm just like giving you the details. I'm fairly sure that this is not something that's supposed to happen. So how can we make sure that people are not anchoring on the reef there? It's not great for the reef. And honestly, like, you know, because I've been in the water, I can tell you for sure they're feeding the fish because they want the fish to come out because they've got tourists on that boat. And so they're feeding the fish. And then what's happening is I see much bigger fish than were there previously. And I think that's because they know that these boats are coming and they're like, woohoo, McDonald's. So what to do about that? I don't know what the right answer is, but I would like there to be an answer.
Hello, Nicole.
So I'm just going to mute myself.
Samantha.
I have something that is along boats anchoring where they're not supposed to be. I've noticed that quite a few of the commercial boats that do tours will go into the bay or go into the other areas of the MLCD. And I think we should go, the community should go directly to those companies and ask them not to. And then as far as enforcement goes, they need to be enforced. Those boats are there every single day like clockwork, so it should be easy to enforce those rules.
Thank you, Samantha.
Yeah, I guess, sorry to just jump in, but I think that a lot of what I'm seeing is a lack of enforcement. And I think that's leading, I think in some sense, to what someone was talking about earlier, which is that there's a lot of grieving going on. When I go down to 3 tables now, it's sad. And, you know, it makes me sad to see it, to see hundreds of people stepping on the reef and tour boats dropping anchor. And of course, one of those boats recently killed one of the manta rays. And I know like people might not feel like they have emotional connection, but I had an emotional connection to that manta ray. And like, I've known him for years.
It is very sad. Thank you for sharing that, Nicole. Jamie, see your hand up.
Yeah, just I think maybe more broadly, I wonder whether or not allowing commercial activities in the MLCD in general is something that makes sense, right? Whether that's snorkels, whether that's sail tours, whatever it is. You know, there are commercial boats, sailing boats that come in and anchor in the bay. There's the commercial boats that anchor just offshore of the firehouse, as someone suggested. And so I think something to think about is just commercial activities in general. And that would, I guess, be inclusive of the commercial fishing I mentioned earlier. As I would suggest that we, as a community, I think allowing commercial activities is I don't think falls, at least within my own personal ideas about supporting the Marine Life Conservation District and what its values and goals are.
this isn't necessarily a suggestion, but I just wanted to add on to that, Jamie. I feel like a lot of the issues with commercial activity is that a lot of people kind of get around it by, like, with scuba companies, they'll drop people off, and then, or like they'll have people come and meet them in like multiple different cars. So then that adds to the busyness of it, because like one scuba trip going out could have like 6 different cars in the parking lot. And so I think it would be a lot bigger of an issue than just maybe like banning commercial boats or anything like that, because you would have to also deal with the people that kind of come in as like, oh, we're just somebody's going for a scuba dive, but it's actually commercial diving. So I just wanted to throw that into the picture as well.
Yeah, fair point. I was thinking of boat-based activities only, but I think it's a slippery slope once you start talking about that. I 100% agree that would be challenging.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And I just want to add to that the comments and suggestions and ideas that you're putting in the chat are also going to be shifted over. So continue to do that, and just know that we're keeping record of the chat as well. So thank you for all of your comments. I'm trying to respond to the ones that I can, but if I don't get to all of them, don't worry. All of your thoughts and ideas will be documented in these notes. So back to you, Nick.
Yeah, any thoughts, comments, rebuttals, questions, things that we should put down in this section? If, if not, we can proceed at any time, but we'll have an opportunity at the end, after discussing each of the 4 pillars, to, revisit anything that was missed, and just a general catch-all section for any other remaining questions or comments that people have at the end.
I guess I'm kind of feeling like, I don't know if like which pillar my comment would fit under. So I'm getting like, does it go here or does it go on the next one? I don't know.
That's okay, Nicole. You can just share your comment, and then we will put it in the appropriate spot afterwards if we need to.
Okay. So there's one more thing that, well, not really, just one more. First is, like, I just want to kind of support Ellie and her thoughts. Like, we have to do something about the numbers of commercial companies that are utilizing the MLCD as a way to make money, because the numbers of people and tourists that it's bringing in are intense, and it's really starting to wear. In addition, they do come in and drop people off. And some of us, including me, have been there on days that they've dropped people off where it's not appropriate for tourists to be snorkeling in Sharks Cove or at 3 tables because of the way the water is. And because those are unlifeguarded beaches, there's a lot of risky situations. I know at one point last year, there were citizen rescues happening weekly. And that is too much. And I myself had to pull somebody out who, Jenny knows me, I'm extremely short, and this guy was not. It was really hard. But on a totally different subject, I do want to say that there's one trend that I'm seeing with the scuba companies that I think really has to be enforced, and that is the trend of using the electric underwater scooters. It's a real problem. It does create noise. It really does impact the enjoyment of everyone else, and there shouldn't be motors like that in the MLCD. And I don't know how you're going to get to that kind of enforcement, but I've seen an increasing amount. So at first there was just 1 or 2. Now there can be 10, 15 in the water at a time.
Thank you, Nicole. Really appreciate your like on the ground knowledge. As someone who
I'm there a lot. I'm there a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yvonne?
I have a quick question. What is an underground, what is that scooter thing? Can someone explain to me what it is, an underwater scooter, electric underwater scooter?
Hi, Auntie. Yeah, so what they are is a handheld like jet propulsion device. And so it's motorized and it has a propeller inside it that spins and it creates propulsion. So you hold it and it actually zooms you through the water. It's about, most of them are about this big around and about, I don't know, 2 feet long, 2 to 3 feet long or so. It's like a handheld propulsion device. Yeah.
There any last, and there can be multiple, but any remaining thoughts with regard to this pillar? As we mentioned, you know, it's not so critical. We want to be as accurate as possible in placing these in the most relevant pillar, but we can circle back. Samantha.
Yeah. Nick, I see Mao's hand up first. Let's go to Mao and then Samantha. Yeah.
Oh, aloha. My name is Mao, and I'm not too sure if it fits in this pillar, but I just wanted to give like some feedback and just some manao. So I know that there's like an issue with the trash. You know, there's always trash, people just leaving trash everywhere. And I know that Jenny just posted something recently where I think it was some kind of drink and a pineapple and like other Opala that whoever is leaving there. And I'm not too sure like who should be held responsible for that. Should the food trucks, you know, like be telling people to make sure to throw their trash away? Should Foodland be, you know what I mean? Like, because there's poke bowls and all of these things and plate lunches and all kinds of mail. Another thing is I'm not too sure. I know that Jenny brought it up, but like with Foodland, they were selling fishing poles for a bit. And that's kind of interesting because that whole area is a no-take zone, but yet Foodland is selling fishing poles. So it's like, you know, it's just kind of interesting. And then even at Waimea, like I'm interested in like, is it okay to people be, you know, that like the trendy thing is to be foiling now, like to be surfing and like you're foiling and whatever, like is that okay? Is that legal? Does it affect the fish? Does it affect, you know, like the porpoises? I don't know, I'm just curious. The commercial boats, a lot of times I'll see even like kind of in the winter time, they'll come in closer and kind of like just drive through and whatever. That's kind of strange. Even today, just this afternoon when I passed, I saw people had put up like water polo nets. I mean, I don't know if maybe that's okay. Is it not? I'm not sure. And then even with the military, I know a lot of times in the mornings, like the entire parking lot is filled with military because they're doing like their morning workouts. Is that okay? Or like should something be said? I don't know. These are just some thoughts that I had, but thank you for letting me on. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk about my complaints. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Mal. Samantha?
Yeah, I just had a comment about lifeguards and more DLNR enforcement. We definitely need more lifeguards in that area. I've seen people getting into dangerous situations because of the surf. They don't know what they should be doing, and there just needs to be more lifeguards. As far as enforcement goes, one of the last times that I was at Waimea, the lifeguards were actually telling some of the powerboats that they were too close into the bay and they needed to go further out if they wanted to be in the bay. I think we should ask the lifeguards to tell any powerboat they're not allowed to be in the bay at all, instead of just going further from shore. I think that would help with some of the enforcement, because I know a few people who own powerboats and they don't know that they're not allowed to be in the MLCD until I tell them or one of my family members tells them. So that could be a good enforcement and educational thing that the lifeguards could do and would help, I think.
Mahalo, Samantha. Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Mao, did you have another follow-up?
I did. Yeah. Sorry, there was one more thing that I forgot to mention. At Waimea too, like a lot of people will bring floaties, and there was an incident where I was swimming and this group of people, their floaty was like floating away like further and further, and so like her and I were like zooming after the floaty, and I feel like that's an issue, you know, like I was thinking we were gonna have to swim into like the Ka'i'iwahu channel, like it was going, and I feel like maybe they should be informed about these things, you know, about their floaties and stuff, like, because if we weren't able to catch it, where would it go?
Mahalo. What do you think, Jenny? Should we shift gears? And if there are any other comments, that's Jamie. Yeah, one more from Jamie.
Yeah, just one last one. I just wanted to put it on the table as a conversation topic at some point. It is obviously from Sharks Cove all the way through to Waimea is no take, but obviously Waimea is not. And so I personally feel like it should be on the table to talk about what options there are potentially make that a no take as well. I know there's important subsistence fishing and other things that happen, but as a conversation topic, I think if the community overwhelmingly thinks that is important, then I do think that we should be talking about that. Yeah, and some modifications. There were some e-foils recently, which is a foil with an electronic motor. The acoustics are impressive. They're very loud underwater, and so that was just to modify that comment from Mo. And I do think that those are illegal, and I think technically all motorized anything is illegal. But you know, I think that there's one of the pillars talks about enforcement, so to speak. So we can talk about it then. But
awesome.
So there we go. We can move forward. I know we're short on time, so let's move forward.
No, you guys are doing great. Thank you so much for all of the input. So yeah, Nick, why don't we go ahead and hit the next pillar and talk about this one.
So pono practices really is anything related to, you know, behavior guided by Hawaiian values and perspectives. And that includes a lot of different things. So the floor is open for any mana'o related to pono practices. Luna, I see your hand up. Feel free to go for it.
Yep, sorry. So my comment is, especially because this is pono practices and it's about education, outreach, compliance, bringing to the table DOBOR, the boating and ocean recreation, just because it sounds like a lot of the Pūpūkea is with boating issues. So DAR is at the table, but our jurisdiction is like aquatic resources. So like the critters in the water, the coral, but like the recreational activities, that falls under boating. So just like their division and DNR, getting somebody from their division to sit in these meetings, they're just like kind of provide like, oh, if they have a question that's related to DAR, like how do we answer it? It would be nice for someone from boating to do that in this similar kind of setting. So I just wanted to plant that seed that you guys invited us, but maybe we can like nudge DOBOR and find somebody from DOBOR, because there's a lot of issues and concerns that seem to be related to that. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Luna. And Jamie, go for it.
Yeah, I don't know how popular I'd be with the kids by suggesting this, but I would suggest the frequency at which the river is dug out for the standing wave. I think is a water quality issue for the bay, and so it's open far more frequent than that would naturally occur, for example. And so I don't don't know that there's any recourse for that. I would suggest that's certainly not Pono practices or following Pono practices, because you're fully disrupting the natural cycle of not only the estuary, but also the bay in terms of the flushing and the amount of sediment and everything else that comes down that river and that watershed. So I think there's an opportunity maybe in this to collaborate with the 30 by 30 for the Malka 30 by 30 and the watersheds and estuaries there. And again, I don't know how you would ever enforce that, or if anybody else even thinks this is an issue, but I would suggest it is.
Yeah,
I can get into detail about water quality issues in bay and so on and so forth, but I think everyone gets it.
Yeah, I thank you for that, Jamie. And Debbie, if you could add to the notes, I know that our team is not really contributing right now because we've had lots of opportunities to, but Jamie brings up a good point of something that I haven't thought about before. We've been learning more from some folks about amphibious critters such as oopu and hihiwai, and those marine animals are biologically triggered by those natural dumps or outlets of the estuary into the bay there. And so when it's done artificially, it definitely can hinder the ability for those marine life to be ready to recruit back up freshwater stream like they're supposed to. So thank you for that, Jamie. That's actually a really important thing to put down into the management plan. So thank you.
Go for it, Nicole.
Oh, I forgot to put my hand up.
Oh, I mean,
a long time
it's a
since
pretty respectful group. I feel like you can chime in if no one's got their hand up.
So I think that this is, when I look at Pono practices and I think about what my understanding, which, like, I'll be straight up with you guys, I'm not originally from Hawaii. I've only been here 20 years, and so I don't always know if I get everything that's encompassed in what Pono means. But what I see in terms of especially the commercial tour vans, is that they are not using this resource in a Pono way. They are using it to extract their money. And so they just seem to have no buy-in to, like, how do we conserve? How do we save? How do we make sure that our children and grandchildren have this resource? And so I think that is where I see a lot of the damage coming from people whose point is to extract as much profit as possible by bringing as many people as possible to this quite small area.
Thank you, Nicole. Ellie can chime in.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to that observation, Nicole. So I was up at Pūpūkea a couple times a week, every week this summer from around end of May up until a few weeks ago. And one of the people who I saw really consistently up there was one of the scuba instructors that would be taking people out of his van. But he was also one of the biggest supporters of what I was doing. And so he would constantly be coming up to me being like, hey, if there's anything I could do to monitor this area, or if there's anything I could do to help, like, enforce different management or educate people. And so I think that while the scuba tours are one of the biggest issues that we have in terms of overuse, it also could be one of kind of our biggest allies if we tap into it in the right way. So maybe, and I think this might not fit necessarily under Pono practices, but more in some kind of a monitoring, maybe in the monitoring pillar. But if there was some kind of a way in the management plan where we could think about educating people on, educating the people who are there constantly on maybe monitoring certain things going on, because some of these scuba instructors are there even more often than I was this summer as monitoring the science of the area. And so they could be a really, really useful resource in terms of monitoring what's going on there. And not just scuba instructors, but anyone like yourself, Nicole, if you're there in the management, like in the MLCD all the time, that to me is a huge resource that we are not yet tapping into. So I'm not quite sure how that would be included in the management plan, but it's just something I've been thinking about the whole summer. So.
A good observation, Ellie. Mahalo. Auntie Yvonne, you want to share?
Yes, I've been noticing all over, and especially like in the area of Keiki, on the right-of-ways to the beaches, that the tour vans now are undocumented. They don't carry signs on their side. If you get up close, you can see their PUC number, but there's no way of really knowing who these tourist vans belong to. And so as far as turning them in or citing them, because what they're doing is they're dropping off people, like I said, like on Keiki Road, and they're dropping tourists off to use the public right-of-ways to the beach. And that one public right-of-way to the beach that's at the Waimea end of Keiki, that's definitely falls into this this area.
Very good points. Jamie, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I guess I'm jumping back to what Ellie said just a comment ago, as I just wanted to support some of her sentiments, are that, like, you know, a lot of these people are well-intended and care, right? Just because they're a commercial operator doesn't mean they have negative intentions with what they're doing. And I think there's an opportunity there to try and actually, I want to provide a suggestion here as opposed to just commenting all of the things I'd like to change, is that, you know, we could come up with some idea, and I know that the organization is working hard on a lot of these things, but, you know, kind of maybe something similar to like a sustainable seafood level, that there's like you know, Apono practices for commercial operators that operate within the MLCD, right? Is that they like have some checklist, and it's part of their, you know, something that they educate or they do that sort of is within the spirit of this conservation management plan and how we sort of want to steward the MLCD. Like, so there, you know, there could be some sort of seal approval that this is a, you know, Pūpūkea-Waimea MLCD, like, you know, supporting company, or I don't know, something like that. That obviously takes the, you know, a collective effort by a lot of us to support and for people to buy into, but I don't know, I thought of it while Ellie was speaking, and so I figured I would put it forward.
Good suggestion, Jamie. Samantha?
Going off of what Ellie was saying, I was, last time I was at Sharks Cove, one of the scuba instructors or tour guides was saying that the area was an MLCD and it was a no-take area, so you couldn't take shells, rocks, you couldn't move anything in the environment, and to like not touch the coral and stuff like that. So I think there is definitely space for the scuba community and companies to help us protect this area. Another thing is I've seen tour buses using the city bus lanes, or like the bus pull-offs, to either load people on or drop them off. And then, yeah, I've noticed more and more tour buses that are incognito. They don't have the name of the tour company on them either.
And Jenny, you probably know the answer to this, but is there some sort of limit as to how many tour companies are supposed to be operating?
Yeah, Nicole, thank you for your question. And there is. And so what I'd like to suggest in the effort to save time, because we just have a half an hour left, I think what I'm thinking of as we're going along here is that it would be a really good idea for us to offer another Makai Watch training very soon. And in that training, a lot of those technical questions about which rules exist and are enforceable at this time, those are gone over there in detail. And so to answer your question quickly, yes, there's a limit. But there's a little more to it than that. And so, you know, our organization is definitely in talks with the DOBOR folks and the DAR folks and DoCare about all of these same issues. So I just wanted to point that out, that we raise the same questions that you do and have the same concerns that you do about those questions. And I think that we should definitely hold another training really soon to give the community more information out there, because you guys are seeing it now, and so you're more invested, and so you're coming up with those questions, whereas before, when we'd offer that information, maybe those answers went like that because it wasn't something that everybody was really invested in. So great question, Nicole, and I'll let you know as soon as we put a training together so we can answer all those questions. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Definitely. Okay, so let's keep going. Thanks, Nick.
Keep going as in move to monitoring?
Sure. Is there any more though? I don't want to rush us.
Last comments about Pono practices.
Does Debbie need to go like this? She's taking notes so fast. Give Debbie a minute. Oh, awesome. Yay, Debbie, you're doing great. Super good group with really, really good ideas and definitely heartfelt comments. So mahalo. But yeah, let's just move to the next one.
Okay. Like we said, there will be an opportunity to circle back at the end. So don't worry. But now is our chance to discuss monitoring, and there's already been some ideas related to monitoring that have come out. So building upon any of those ideas or any other thoughts that you may have as far as what DAR and our community can do more of related to monitoring.
I don't know if it would be helpful for folks to understand, Jenny, all the different kilo activities MPW is doing, and just so they have a baseline there.
Sure. So what are we doing now? You mean what are we monitoring now? Yeah. There's so much. So I'll just start off the top of my head of the monitoring I personally do, which is kilo. And kilo is this idea of observation. And so it's a little bit different than a Western version of monitoring in science, but it is still science. And some of the things that I kilo are general conditions, present, not present. But the bigger thing that kilo monitors is relationships and patterns. And so, you know, if this moon phase is happening, then we should see this type of marine life abundant more. And if not, then that means something is off. And so those are just a little examples of kilo. But one of the bigger things that we monitor also under sort of that idea of kilo is limu. And so we definitely do very vigorous limu monitoring, seaweed monitoring in the MLCD at Pūpūkea-Waimea. And then also the human use monitoring, like Debbie mentioned earlier, we do, you know, how are humans using the area, how many humans at any particular time are snorkeling or swimming. This summer, there was additional monitoring done for human use that included literally what are those humans doing, and taking note every time a human touched something underwater or stepped on something underwater. And so that data is about to be out. And like Denise mentioned earlier, Ellie, who has been doing biological monitoring all summer, and that's fish surveys and invertebrate surveys and coral surveys. We're going to be having them do a science talk story where they're going to actually present all of that information and data for everybody, so we can kind of all know what's been going on and what's happening. And then I know this isn't so much biological monitoring, but we keep track of how many pounds of rubbish we pick up how many pounds of invasive weeds and shrubs we remove from our native Hawaiian plant coastal restoration areas. We monitor, let's see, what am I forgetting, everybody? There's a lot that we monitor. We monitor how many people we educate, how many people we touch doing outreach, how many are in our programs. Yeah, so there's a lot of monitoring. And I like that example there, continue regular community monitoring of human use. And I think I think it was Nicole that mentioned it earlier that, the community is available to do a lot of monitoring too. And so we'd love to hear your ideas on what kind of monitoring would you like to see, or would you like to be a part of, or to see expanded? Or I'm going to quote Debbie here, and I know everybody on our team is going to kind of giggle when I say this, but the big question that Debbie always asks after all of this data is collected is, so what? And so I think that's really the spot to work on, is what do we do with all of this information? Yeah, I hope that answered your question.
I wanted to, Nick, if I can, I wanted to ask Jenny to also just mention the Ocean Education Ambassador launch, because it fits right in here, and I'm sure folks would want to hear about it.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Denise. I have it at the end there as a bullet, but you're right. I was thinking we should definitely move that up. And so this is sort of brand new breaking information. We're just expanding our Makai Watch program, which is more geared towards fishing and like resource violations. And we're expanding it to a program called Ocean Education Ambassadors. And so this is a volunteer-based program where we're going to be recruiting folks just like all of you who are always in the area to actually get trained up. And when you are spending time down there in and around, especially the tide pool area, it's to be on the ground and interfacing with visitors to the area about pono and best practices, like in the moment while it's happening. And so thanks, Denise, for bringing that up. There's going to be more information coming out about there. Definitely, Samantha, I see your comment there. It's going to be super fun. We just ordered the shirts. Everybody gets their own cool shirt, and you get trained up and you collect data on human use. But you're also, I'll just give you an example. You see a family going into the tide pools with a scoop net. You're able to walk up to those folks and go, hi, not sure if you know, but it's a protected area and scoop nets aren't allowed here. And so it's going to be a really important part of our Makai Watch sort of family to focus on visitors to the MLCD and how their impacts are affecting the health, especially of the shallow water areas there.
Ellie, see you.
All right, Jenny, I'm stoked on this one, because one of the things that I was going to bring up in terms of a specific concrete thing that we can add to the management plan, and I believe that someone mentioned it in the chat a while ago, but having a DLNR officer specifically stationed at Pūpūkea on a regular basis, because as I was up there doing my surveys this summer, I don't, like, I'm not a DLNR officer. I don't have any kind of authority to be able to enforce rules, but I had the MPW shirt on that I believe Denise is wearing a version of right now. And because it's bright yellow and it says MPW on the front and Makai Watch Education Coordinator on the back, people would assume that I worked there and come up to me with questions all the time. And so, I know the process of moving towards getting a DLNR officer up there on a more regular basis is going to be a kind of long, drawn out process. So in the meantime, I think getting volunteers up there, because if you wear a shirt and you stand and act like you know what you're doing, people are going to ask you questions, and then also, maybe listen to you when you provide some soft suggestions. So I think that is, I'm saying applause, and also definitely adding the need for a DLNR officer in there, because even just a couple of days a week, there were ample things for me to do in terms of making sure that visitors up there knew the rules and were also not hurting themselves.
Any other thoughts related to monitoring? As you heard, there's already a lot going on, but always room to improve and expand.
I'll give a quick thought, Nick. absolutely support what Ellie just said in terms of like, clearly we could use some additional doe care support, but with the spirit of this, I think that I could be wrong, but a vast majority of, I think, the historical surveys have in terms of biological surveys, in terms of specifically like fish, diversity, biomass, all of that, have been focused on hard bottom habitat, and that's mostly basically three tables and all the way to Sharks Cove in it. And I think that and this gets back to my initial comment about potentially monitoring the impacts of the commercial fisheries, is that I do think that there are such different species in the bay itself that deserves a concerted effort, is to, and they're incredibly seasonal. So a lot of the fish that you're seeing, all fish are seasonal, to be clear, but in terms of their abundance, but a lot of fish are residents within, say, Sharks Cove, right? But within the bay, it's very seasonal. You get these big pulses of schooling fish in the summer, and then they kind of leave during the winter. And that, I think that those are really important. And I think the bay is a really unique habitat that supports that ecosystem function that I think is under appreciated and undervalued. And so I think, and that's just from an ecological and biological perspective. So I think it's worth putting some energy into that, documenting that, monitoring more regularly than, say, every couple of years, because of that seasonality. The year, and even the interannual variability in the schooling species and the biomass that's in there is substantial. And that's something like we just don't understand, even as marine scientists. And I think that particular place is a cool opportunity to understand that. And that was a lot. Like I should probably not speak so much, because the note takers probably really irritated about the amount I'm saying, but and that's something we could potentially work together. I feel like NOAA would have a vested interest in understanding that. That's not just a state resource question. That actually is a fundamental biological and ecological question that, again, we don't fully understand. And those fall into the auspices of various sort of federal legislation, because those species are not confined to coastal waters. So I think there's an opportunity there. So I do support all the human use monitoring too, but just to sort of like add a biological monitoring component to this.
Very good point, Jamie. Any last comments on monitoring? I think we should probably shift to the next one soon. Okay, Mal?
Sorry, just really quickly, I was thinking, I mean, maybe we need to do like a sit-in like they're doing at YPO Valley. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. And just like line up and be like, no. Yeah.
There's a thought.
Yeah.
Any other brief ideas related to monitoring? If not, we can move to protection and restoration. Just kind of taking everything and looking forward to how we can take this beautiful, abundant resource and make it even better. Jamie.
I did wait, some period of time, hoping that it wasn't just going to be me chiming in again. I think this is broad for sure. So a lot of the things we've already articulated would potentially fall within underneath this. But one thing we have not mentioned much is land-based pollution. So there's a lot of things. I guess a general statement is that conservation goals that are marine-based will be impacted by what's happening on land, right? So we may not meet our conservation goals if we don't at least to some extent address land-based pollution. And so a good example is cesspools. There's the North Shore has one of the highest concentrations of cesspools, and also releases a tremendous amount of effluent into the near shore. Now, there is a 2050 goal for all cesspool conversion, but the way that the state is prioritizing that is based on a bunch of different factors, and marine managed areas are one of those factors. But I think in the conservation plan, if we could state that it is a priority for us to deal with water quality and deal with land-based sources of water quality issues, and cesspools would be one of them. There are, I'm sure, plenty of cesspools within the sort of geography that you would say is the MLCD, sort of just up Malka, whether that's, you know, Sunset Beach side of Foodland or what have you. And so that falls within water quality monitoring, but that also falls within protection restoration. You know, there's probably other ideas we could generate within this, but I think it should mention in the management plan that the state, you know, prioritize this area for these reasons.
Thank you, Jamie. I feel like this should be a talkative one. Any thoughts?
Okay, since everybody's so quiet all of a sudden, I'm just kidding. I wanted to tack on to what Jamie was saying a little bit about how, you know, there's entities out there that affect the MLCD but aren't necessarily, you know, directly in the water, right? What they do or don't do affects what's happening in the water. And one of the things that I've brought up a lot, and I would love to hear everybody else's thoughts on that, are the paths in and around the MLCD. And so it's something that I know Denise and I were just talking about today, and it's always kind of been my dream or the pain in my side. But, you know, I would love to see those paths shored up somehow to where they aren't just dumping soil and sediment directly into the MLCD when it's raining. And so if anybody has any ideas or suggestions or thoughts about that, that would be awesome to share with us too. And I'll just take this moment also to remind everyone that this is not your only opportunity to share your ideas with us. And so on our last slide, we'll give you more information about some upcoming things. We have a walk story coming up where we'll actually be at the MLCD, walking and talking and sharing ideas. And then we're also going to have an additional in-person meeting. So you'll have lots of opportunities. And you can also, if you think of something at 4 o'clock in the morning, you can email us and send us, and we'll compile everything that way too. So I just wanted to point that out really fast.
Samantha, go for it.
As far as other pollutants go, I've noticed just tons and tons of trash in the MLCD recently. So I was wondering if there could be a kind of joint endeavor where many different organizations and the community do regular beach cleanups, like every Sunday or every Saturday. Hundreds of people come and do beach cleanups. And we could probably also partner with other volunteerism groups to help get engagement from some of the visitors as well. I know a lot of people are into the volunteerism idea, like going to a place, enjoying it, and helping out. So I think that would be a unique opportunity to reach out through different governmental organizations, nonprofits, community, and visitors to help protect our environment.
Some good ideas there. Thank you. Anybody who hasn't? Oh, Nicole. Nicole, you're on mute.
Yeah. So one thing that I do see a lot of is people wearing reef shoes and then walking on the reef. So I think that would be a great thing to really highlight signage, you know, talking to people as they get there, you know, maybe even talking to some of the people who are renting equipment across the street and saying, hey, like this is having a really bad effect. Please, you know, don't rent these. I think that because people are wearing these reef shoes, they're like, oh, I can step on anything now. And then they do.
Good points. Any ideas from anyone who may not have had a chance to chime in or has chimed in less throughout the evening? Also have our catch-all slide coming up next. So if you're holding any kind of overall thoughts or ideas that may not fit into any of these categories, then we'll be moving to that next. I wondered if there's ever been like reef trails, like on reefs, like if you establish a designated place, you know, to walk. I know we don't want to see people walking on the reefs at all, but like on the flat limestone areas. That's just a thought that crossed my mind. Maybe it wouldn't work in this scenario, but in a calmer area, limiting the impact. Well, if nobody has anything else on protection and restoration, any last comments? We are running a little low on time, but we want to make sure that we give everybody the opportunity to share if anything's coming to mind.
I just have one more comment that I want to make in terms of protection, and that's this, is that one of, I think, the unintended consequences of there being so much visitation and tourism to the MLCD is that the people who live here aren't going as much. And so when the people who live here, who live, you know, right here, aren't going as much, they're not going to have that same connection and desire to protect and desire to conserve. And I think that is as big a loss as any.
Yeah, Nicole, I appreciate you making that comment. And, you know, it reminds me of kind of what Mal mentioned earlier. And I know Mal was kind of half joking about what is happening on Hawaii Island and the community sort of taking back their space. But my hope is that this Ocean Education Ambassador program is kind of, you know, able to act like a bridge to that, to where we do have more of a presence down there collectively with the same voice, right? And so eventually, hopefully, it'll really make a difference, and we can sort of, you know, reclaim our space in that way, in a very positive educational way. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that.
Okay, everyone. Well, in the interest of time, I'm going to switch to the final catch-all, Mana'o Pakui. Any final commentary? Of course, you have more opportunities after this, but anything else that you want to burning that you want to share tonight? It's been a lot of really good ideas that have come out. I've learned a lot. Okay, I see Mao and then Auntie Yvonne.
I just wanted to express like my mahalo towards Jenny and guys, you know, because it's like, she said like the 500 pounds of trash, you know, how many people she's educating, and like, she really is holding that presence, because not everybody in the community, one, is doing it, you know, and two, maybe they can't, but, you know, so just so much mahalo for Jenny and everybody that's involved. You know, they're really doing the groundwork, and the fact that we can go to them and ask questions, and they know, you know, about the signage, we can bring these issues, and they know what's going on. So yeah, just a lot of appreciation and mahalo for you guys, Jenny.
Yvonne?
Well, my question, it didn't seem to fit in with anything. And I was just wondering what other people thought about limiting the parking. I think that when Waimea opened up, Waimea Falls Park opened up that their parking there, I think that it's really added to the people that go to the bay, and it's also very dangerous to cross the street there without a crosswalk. The other place is along the shoulder there, across the street from the food trucks. I noticed that the traffic seems to flow better now that they've made the parking on the right side of the parking lot down at down by Sharks Cove. And I'm just wondering if maybe if we could put no parking signs along there. I think that traffic would flow better. And also I think it might limit the people using Sharks Cove and those areas. I've kind of been talking about it a lot to other people, and I was just wondering what your views were. That's all.
Thank you. So Auntie Denise and then Samantha, and then I think we might need to cut it off just so there's time to wrap things up.
Thank you. Mine is a comment, is more of a question. It doesn't fit in any particular box. And the question for everybody is, what partners are there out there that can help us? Because we do have limited capacity. You're looking at it. And I love Jamie's comment, you know, when he made a suggestion, he's like, wow, NOAA could help with this. So we really want your creative ideas. We don't, you know, we have a list, but we haven't, you know, it's not exhaustive, and there are people changing and new partners all the time. So if not now, at some other time, because we need to kind of spread the workload. And part of the goal of the management plan is to get people to engage and step up. So that would be great now or later to have suggestions like, you know, maybe there's a business who can specifically adopt a certain kind of project or something like that. But mahalo for helping us brainstorm about partners.
Thank you, Samantha. You'll be our last one. I think we just want to go through the last couple slides, and perhaps Jenny and folks and Debbie could stay on after, but for those who need to run, Samantha.
I'll keep this short. It's about parking, like, and limiting parking because it's a problem, but we'll have to be careful about how we do it, because a lot of locals are already struggling to find parking. So we want to make sure that locals are still able to go to these areas. So I've been talking a lot with my family about the parking problems, and we could figure out a way to maybe reserve parking spots for locals, or give other incentives for visitors to take the city bus, or maybe even have a bus coming from different areas where visitors can park, catch a bus, and then visit different areas on the island. And that could also be a good venue for educating about how to respect the marine environment and to limit your impact. That would also reduce traffic. So yeah, parking is something that could have a really big positive or negative impact on the community.
Thank you, Samantha. I'm going to hand it back to, is it Jenny?
Mm-hmm.
For the next steps, so we can go over this in case anyone needs to run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Okay. So next steps, and I'm going to go through these quick. We do have a walk talk story scheduled for October 8th from 8 to 10 a.m. where we're going to walk from Kulalua Point all the way to Kalua Amawa, or Three Tables. And just like I mentioned earlier, talk and brainstorm and just look at it, be on the ground looking at some of the issues in and around the MLCD. In addition, we're going to be holding an in-person meeting at Waimea Valley. It's going to be up in the Proud Peacock, and that's going to be on November 5th from 4 to 6 p.m. And so for both of those will be advertised the exact same way that this community meeting was. So if you saw and found out about this one, you will see and find out about those two coming up, and it'll be the exact same registration process. So be looking out for those. It should come out pretty soon. And then also, if we mentioned this earlier too, but if you have additional ideas, email them to us at mpweducation gmail.com. And if you could do that by November 30th, that would be really great. And the reason is because what's going to happen next is MPW is going to compile and draft the goals, the objectives, and the actions based on these public meetings. And we're going to work with Division of Aquatic Resources to draft a plan. And then the Holomua team is going to submit that draft to DAR leadership. And once leadership approves, DAR will then post and provide 2 weeks for public feedback prior to adoption of that final plan. And so the last thing, that was that bullet point I wanted to remind everybody about the Ocean Ambassador, Ocean Education Ambassador Volunteer Program, but we already went over that. And then finally, to wrap up the evening, we just want to say mahalo nui. So mahalo nui, of course, to all of you for being here, to the Division of Aquatic Resources, to Sea Grant Hawaii, the North Shore Community Land Trust, to supporters of the management planning process, including Hawaii Green Growth and Oceans 5, Hawaii Tourism Authority, Laura Jane Musser Fund, Patagonia Haleiwa, the World Surf League, and last but not least, to the Malama Pūpūkea-Waimea Board of Directors, contractors, staff, volunteers, and supporters. So mahalo nui.
Hello, Jenny.
Thank you. It was very informative.
Awesome. I'm going to stop record.